Harper Sullivan grew up in Fairview, a quiet little town tucked into the heart of Connecticut, where every house looked like it belonged on a postcard. Her family, the Sullivans, was often cited as the neighborhood ideal. Her father, Greg Sullivan, a well-known real estate agent whose booming laugh could be heard down the block. Her mother, Elaine, a gentlewoman who worked part-time at a dental clinic, but spent most of her days volunteering at church or hosting local potlucks. Every Christmas, their white house with the red roof glowed brighter than any other. Greg meticulously hung lights down to the last hedge. Elaine baked gingerbread cookies shaped like stars, and the whole family wore red and white striped pajamas for the annual photo in front of the 8-foot Christmas tree in the living room. Harper, the eldest child, was the crown jewel. She's so smart, top of her class, and so well-mannered, Greg would boast to anyone who'd listen. Her younger brother Brandon, 6 years her junior, often got the lion's share of the coddling, but Harper never needed that she was the one everyone believed would make it big someday. Winter evenings were spent wrapped in blankets watching family movies together. When it snowed, Greg would whip up mugs of cocoa and gather everyone in the backyard to build snowmen. Elaine would light cinnamon candles in the kitchen, filling the home with a warmth so thick it felt like nothing could ever go wrong. And for a long time, Harper believed that too. Those memories were once her safe harbor when the world outside felt heavy. But in time, as things began to fall apart, she would look back and realize what she thought was perfect had been a curated illusion. Beneath the sparkle were fine fractures hidden under the weight of orchestrated appearances. When Harper moved to the city for college and then work, she carried that house in her heart like an anchor. But no one had warned her that sometimes the most picturesque families are where the deepest wounds are buried. That sometimes love can be so entangled with obligation that one forgets where affection ends and control begins. After graduating from college, Harper moved to Boston for her first full-time job. It wasn't glamorous. She shared a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with roommates, ate instant noodles for dinner, and quietly learned the ropes of independence. But she was proud. She paid her own bills, carved her own path in digital marketing, and never once asked for help. Back home, her parents called often. At first, it was all warmth, her mom sharing old recipes, her dad cracking jokes, and occasional nudges about coming home for the holidays. But soon their calls began to shift in tone. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, Greg's real estate business took a nosedive. The housing market froze, commissions vanished, and his once steady confidence began to falter. It's been 3 months, and not a single deal, he confessed in one late-night call. Elaine tried to stay upbeat, but her voice couldn't mask the worry in her eyes during video chats. At first, Harper helped in small ways: $300 for Brandon's college textbooks, $600 to fix her mother's aging sedan. To her, it was only natural. Her parents had given her everything. A few $100s was a small price to repay that kind of love. But then came the call that changed everything. One gray autumn afternoon, Greg phoned with his voice barely above a whisper. "Harper, we might lose the house." They had refinanced at the worst possible time, and now the adjustable rate mortgage was ballooning. "It's just a rough patch," he insisted, trying to sound hopeful. But Harper could hear the tremble beneath the words. Without a second thought, she agreed to co-sign their $380,000 mortgage. She didn't live in the house. She wasn't receiving any benefit. But all she could think was, "This is my family. I can't let them lose their home." Outside the bank parking lot, her mother hugged her tight and whispered, "You saved our home, sweetheart." For months afterward, Harper felt at peace. Things seemed to be stabilizing. She earned a promotion, bought her own modest condo in Brookline, and slowly began rebuilding her savings. But what Harper didn't realize was that this loving act of rescue born from loyalty had quietly opened a door. a door into a cycle of dependency she hadn't signed up for, where she had unknowingly taken on the role of the family's financial lifeline. And once they saw her that way, it became far too easy for them to keep reaching out, never stopping to ask whether Harper herself was staying afloat. At first, Harper thought the storm had passed. After helping her parents secure their home, she focused on her career, decorated her modest condo, and leaned into a new chapter of independence. Her parents' calls returned to their usual warmth until small requests began slipping in. First vague, then gradually assumed. It started with a simple message from her mother: "Brandon needs a new laptop for online classes. Could you help out?" Harper transferred the money without hesitation. Another time Greg called with a sheepish tone saying, "I've been thinking about joining the golf club. After all these years, I think I deserve a little something nice." There were no outright demands, just subtle reminders of sacrifices made in the past, reminders that, though never spoken as such, hinted at a debt Harper was expected to repay. Over time, financial emergencies seemed to appear right on cue with her professional milestones. Somehow, they always knew when she'd received a quarterly bonus or a promotion. Her mother would casually ask, "So any big plans with the bonus?" as if it were common knowledge. When Harper declined an invitation to a distant cousin's wedding due to work commitments, Greg chuckled with an edge. "Seems like you're forgetting where you come from." Elaine added more gently, "Don't let work disconnect you from your roots." These weren't blatant accusations, more like fine needles sharp enough to pierce without drawing blood. Harper began to feel like an outsider within her own family. Every time she accomplished something, a career win, a well-earned vacation, the conversation inevitably shifted to her parents' difficulties. She didn't expect praise, but she began to notice that her success was consistently shadowed by guilt, as though doing well for herself was somehow a betrayal of those who had sacrificed for her. What troubled her most was that she started dreading her phone lighting up with home. The ringtone became a warning, not a comfort. It was rarely just a check-in anymore. It was almost always a preamble to another ask, one she couldn't say no to without feeling like a bad daughter. What had once been occasional help had morphed slowly but unmistakably into habitual dependency. That Christmas, Harper was more excited than she had been in years. She and her longtime partner Ethan had just moved into a charming craftsman-style home in Ridgefield. For the first time, she had the chance to host the holidays in a space that was truly her own. She planned every detail meticulously: a towering Douglas fir, a new dining table, large enough for the entire family, and hand-stitched stockings labeled with each family member's name, even Brandon's new girlfriend whom she'd never met. Ethan teased her for her color-coded spreadsheets and obsessive checklists, but he helped her string lights, bake cookies, and wrap gifts with quiet enthusiasm. "This Christmas is going to be perfect," Harper beamed as they placed the angel atop the tree. Everything was falling into place until a casual phone call from her mother disrupted the calm. "Oh, sweetie, your dad and I might be a little late on Christmas Eve," Elaine said breezily. "We need to stop by the travel agency to finalize our cruise." Harper blinked. "A cruise? Just a little Caribbean getaway in February," her mother said cheerfully. 35 years of marriage deserves a celebration, don't you think? Harper agreed, half listening, but her mind reeled. Just 2 months ago, her parents had asked her to cover their property tax bill due to a cash flow hiccup. Curious, she looked up the cruise line and saw the base fare started at over $3,000 per person, excluding excursions and airfare. The next day, Harper drove to her parents' house, planning to bring it up gently. But before she could say anything, she was greeted by a shiny new 65-inch smart TV being mounted in the living room, luxury shopping bags cluttering the kitchen counters, and Greg beaming as he called the TV an early Christmas treat. Elaine waved around a collection of designer dresses. Just a few things for the cruise, she said, tags still attached. Harper took a breath, trying to stay calm. The cruise sounds lovely, but I'm a little confused. Didn't you say you were short on the property taxes recently? Her mother laughed it off. That was nothing. Just a temporary cash flow issue. Greg chimed in, patting her shoulder. We've got things under control. The cruise is a reward for how disciplined we've been. But when Harper brought up the fact that her name was still on their mortgage, Greg's tone hardened. Are you keeping score now after everything we've done for you? Elaine's voice shifted instantly, taking on that wounded softness Harper had heard many times before. I didn't realize we needed your approval to spend money, Harper. We're your parents, not children you have to monitor. What began as concern quickly spiraled into blame, tears, and accusations. Harper left feeling emotionally bruised, the weight of disappointment heavy in her chest. That evening, she sat in silence beside the Christmas tree lights, blurring through her tears. Ethan took her hand. He didn't speak, but he didn't have to. Harper knew. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a pattern, and this time, she wasn't going to let it continue. On the morning of December 23rd, Harper woke to soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. The scent of cinnamon and pine still lingered in her meticulously decorated home. Despite the emotional storm the night before, she tried to center herself. Brewed coffee finished wrapping a few last gifts. Christmas was coming, even if it wouldn't look the way she had planned. Her phone buzzed. A new voicemail from her father. Assuming it was another schedule update, she hit play, but Greg's voice came through like ice. Harper, after speaking with your mother, we've decided there will be no Christmas this year, at least not with you. Your constant questioning of our finances and choices is intolerable. Since you care so much about money, expect a call from our lawyer. Don't call back. We need space from your controlling behavior. Then the final blow. You've made your priorities clear, and sadly, family isn't one of them. The ribbon slipped from Harper's fingers. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She sat motionless. Ethan rushed in when he saw her pale face, listened to the message, and clenched her hand in anger. After everything you've done for them, Harper said nothing. Her mind flickered through every time she had compromised, every time she had silenced herself to keep the peace, every dollar never repaid. And now all she got was a threat. But this time she wasn't going to apologize. She wasn't going to plead. She wasn't going to chase reconciliation. She opened her phone, typed a single word, understood, and sent it. That afternoon, while Ethan finished the last of the holiday shopping, Harper sat down at her laptop. She began researching legal options. To her surprise, in her state, a cosigner who does not reside in the property can request removal under specific conditions. She contacted 3 financial advisors. The third, Dana Hargrove, had an opening that day. Dana reviewed her documents, eyebrows raised, as she discovered that Harper's parents had taken out 2 additional home equity lines of credit, totaling over $120,000 without Harper's knowledge or consent. The good news, Dana said, is you're only tied to the primary mortgage, but we need to move fast. Dana connected Harper with a real estate attorney, David Kim. After reviewing the paperwork, he confirmed what Dana had suggested. Harper could file for removal based on lack of financial benefit and the threatening voicemail as evidence of coercion. Leaving the office, Harper felt a strange mix of grief and clarity. This was the beginning of an ending, not because she wanted to break her family apart, but because she refused to be held hostage by a relationship that had mistaken loyalty for obligation. 2 days after Greg's cold voicemail, Harper's phone became a battleground. Over 48 hours, she received 68 missed calls from her parents, her younger brother Brandon, the family's lawyer, and even distant relatives who rarely contacted her before. The messages evolved in tone. First came commands. Harper, call us immediately. "What's going on with the bank? I can't believe you did this without telling us." Then came false concern. "We're worried about you. This isn't like you. Has Ethan been influencing you?" Next, veiled threats. "Don't destroy this family over a misunderstanding. You'll regret this if you don't fix it." Finally, as it became clear Harper wouldn't respond, panic set in. "They're asking for financial records. We don't have everything they need. Harper, don't do this. We could lose the house." That last line, spoken by the same father who had threatened legal action days earlier, now trembled with fear. Her mother wept openly in a final voicemail. "You're the only hope we have left. Don't be so cruel." Harper listened to each message, documenting them carefully, no longer as a burdened daughter, but as someone assembling a record of emotional manipulation, finally seeing the pattern for what it was. Her attorney, David Kim, advised her to remain silent until the bank's decision was finalized. "Their response is exactly why we moved fast," he said. "They need you more than they've ever admitted, and now you're reclaiming control." That afternoon, Harper received the email from the bank. "Your request for removal has been approved." She was no longer a co-signer on the mortgage for 1842 Oakwood Lane. She sat quietly reading the words over and over as a wave of emotions washed over her: relief, grief, and most of all, freedom. She had done something that the old Harper could never have imagined, rescued herself from a toxic family dynamic, not with rage, but with clarity. After receiving the confirmation email from the bank stating her name had been officially removed from the mortgage, Harper sat still at her desk, the silence after the storm pressing gently against her chest. Her phone continued to ring. Messages still poured in. But this time she felt no compulsion to respond. She owed them nothing. That evening, Harper and Ethan sat side by side, laptop open, carefully composing a formal message addressed to her parents, Brandon, and their attorney. No accusations, no blame, just facts, unfiltered and unshakable. She began. "I have been officially removed as a co-signer from the mortgage on 1842 Oakwood Lane. This action was completed legally and is not subject to reversal." She then outlined the financial history of the past 6 years, $65,000 in unrepaid emergencies, 2 undisclosed home equity lines, and the Christmas Eve voicemail, where her father threatened legal action over boundaries she had every right to set. "I am open to rebuilding our relationship, but only under new terms based on mutual respect and clear boundaries. My conditions are as follows. No further requests for money loans or guarantees. Acknowledgement of the past pattern of financial dependency. Agreement to family counseling should reconciliation be desired." She closed with a firm declaration. "I will be taking a 30-day break from communication to allow space for reflection. Any attempt to manipulate, guilt, or pressure me during this period will result in extended no contact." After pressing send, Harper shut off her phone, not in anger, but as an act of self-preservation. They could try to reach her, but this time she was ready. No longer driven by guilt or obligation, she had rewritten the terms of engagement, and if they wanted to continue this relationship, they would have to play by her rules now. When the 30-day silence ended, Harper didn't immediately reach out. She took one more day to breathe, then sent a concise message to her parents. "I'm open to meeting to talk. Saturday, 11 a.m. at Riverside Cafe. I'll be bringing Ethan." The choice of a public location was intentional, a strategic decision to maintain boundaries around time, tone, and space. Having Ethan there wasn't optional, it was protective. Her father replied within minutes. "Why not meet at home? Families should talk at home." Harper didn't budge. She responded simply, "These are my terms for the first conversation." An hour later, the confirmation came. "Okay, we'll be there." Saturday morning, Harper woke early. Despite all the preparation with her therapist, her hands were cold with nerves. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not going there to fix anything. You're going to stand your ground." When they entered the cafe, her parents were already seated. Elaine looked more tired than usual, her makeup unable to conceal the anxiety in her eyes. Greg sat stiffly, his jaw tight. Neither of them stood to hug her. A clear sign the dynamic had shifted. After a tense pause, Greg spoke first. "You've put us in a very difficult position." Harper nodded slightly, then replied, "I understand this is a transition. But as I said in my email, I can only continue this relationship with clear boundaries." Elaine jumped in, voice trembling. "How could you do this to us? After everything?" Harper met her gaze calmly. "Because I won't keep repeating the same patterns. I no longer feel safe being financially entangled in this family." Greg frowned. "We raised you, paid for your education, supported your choices. And now you demand boundaries." Ethan gently tapped the table, a silent reminder. Harper inhaled deeply. "I want a relationship built on respect, not obligation. No threats, no conditions." She placed a folder on the table, a detailed log of the past 6 years, every dollar, every date, every broken promise. Elaine flipped through the pages, eyes widening. "You told me that was for medical bills. I thought the cruise was from your year-end bonus." That moment, Harper saw the first crack in their united front. Greg said nothing. Elaine began to cry. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was the start of truth. Before leaving, Harper laid it out clearly. "If you want to stay in my life, I need 3 things: financial transparency, no more money requests, and family counseling. Without that, I'll keep my distance." The meeting at Riverside Cafe hadn't resolved everything, but it opened a door not to return to what was, but to rebuild from the ground up. 2 days later, Harper received an email from her mother. There were no accusations, no defensiveness, just a few simple lines. "I've thought about everything. I'm willing to do counseling. If you still want me in your life, I'm ready to begin again." That same day Brandon called. His tone had changed, no longer defensive, but thoughtful. "I found one of Dad's credit card statements hidden in his desk. It's worse than I thought. I'm sorry. I didn't get it before." It was the first time the 2 siblings talked like adults, no longer on opposing sides, but standing together facing the uncomfortable truth that they had grown up in a dysfunctional dynamic where love was tethered to unquestioning sacrifice. Harper started meeting her mother weekly at a small cafe near her home. The first few meetings were awkward, but over time they listened more and defended less. One afternoon, Elaine admitted, "I used to think keeping the peace was always the right thing to do, but now I see avoiding conflict just pushed it onto someone else." Greg remained distant. He didn't lash out anymore, but he wasn't ready to apologize either. The difference was Harper no longer waited for it. She measured the relationship by what was real, not what she wished it could be. During one family counseling session with Dr. Abigail Chen, a therapist specializing in financial trauma, Greg finally said something Harper had never expected to hear. "Every time Harper succeeded, I felt like I failed. I didn't know how to process that, so I clung to financial control." It wasn't a full apology, but it was an honest acknowledgement. And in a family where silence had long been the currency of survival, that meant something. By the following spring, Harper's home was filled with sunlight and a quiet kind of laughter. There were no more frantic calls about unpaid bills, no emergency emails begging for help. No more tense family dinners where she had to wear the mask of the responsible one. She still kept in touch with her mother, but now it came from a place of balance and mutual respect. They gardened together, cooked on weekends, and sometimes just sat side by side in silence, not needing to fill the air with anything. Her bond with Brandon had grown more genuine than ever. There were no secrets, no pretending. One afternoon, he chuckled and said, "I used to think you were invincible. Now I see your vulnerable side too, and honestly, I respect you more for it, not less." Harper realized she didn't have to be the pillar of the family to be loved. She was valued not for what she could provide, but for who she was. As for Greg, the closeness hadn't fully returned, but there was now a quiet respect between them. When Brandon mentioned Harper was considering buying her own property, Greg simply nodded and said, "If she wants advice, I won't interfere unless she asks." For Harper, that meant more than any apology ever could. She began doing things she had long delayed: enrolling in art classes, taking Ethan on a mountain retreat in Colorado, joining a circle of women investors. No one asked for money. No one used the word family as a leash. For the first time in her life, Harper lived in a home without invisible pressure. Not because she abandoned her family, but because she redefined her role within it. And perhaps most importantly, Harper had come to understand real love never demands blind sacrifice in return.